Hey guys, I was just going to do a quick video to kind of go with the notes that I did with you guys last time. Really quickly, we're just going to review the basics. There's percent of questions, percent is questions, and then we're going to look at percent increase and percent decrease relative. So really quickly, I'm just going to go through an example of how I'm doing it. Again, our textbook does it different. I just set up the ratios and compare them and then cross multiply. But whatever the kid or whatever you guys want to do is going to be completely acceptable. The book does spend a fair bit of time looking at number lines, taking it down to a 1% value, and then multiplying it back up to the appropriate percent. Either method will work. They will all give us the right answer. So only reason why I push this one is because for percent of and percent is, you're pretty much doing the same technique. You're just rearranging how you set up your ratio. So real quick, calculating percents, I'll start with that and we'll have an idea of what's going on with this. So give me 30 seconds. Calculate 65% of 408. Key thing that I wanted you guys to recognize is 408 is going to represent the 100% value. So if that's 100%, then I want to now in turn set my ratio to see what it would be at 65. So I write down 100% is equal to 408. And the question is, well, what's 65%? And I don't know. That's my unknown. So again, I'll just change colors here and match up. I cross multiply. And what I'm looking at, I'll change it back here, 100 times n is 100n, and this bottom one is going to be 65 times 408. So I'm going to end up simply multiplying this through. In this case, I would do my next step would be to get rid of this 100, divide by 100, and now I can say that n is equal to 65 times 408 all divided by 100. So when I do the math, do this question, I'll just finish it up over here. N is equal to, multiplying it through, I get 65 times 408 divided by 100 gives me a value 265.2. I do just want to take a second and emphasize 265.2. Because of this dollar sign, I know that this is now money, and I know that 265.2 represents $265.20 because we need a value in that hundredths position. So this is actually 265.20. Okay, so it's $265.20. So that's how we do percent of questions. Biggest thing, making sure that we're setting up that ratio. I know that 408 was my 100%. This next question is a percent is question. It's set up that way, and the reason I know that it's kind of a percent is I'm looking at this and it says the value which was or which is 20%. It's telling me that $25 is connected to that 20%. So that means instead of doing my ratio of 100%, I'm going to say 20% is my $25, and I want to know the original cost. And to get to the original cost, I know that that's going to be 100% of all my money is going to be the original cost. So I got that ratio. Again, I'm looking at doing the exact same thing at this point, 20% times n, 100% times 25. And just to kind of reiterate that percent signs, they cancel out. There's one on top of another. So the ratio, that connection with percent is no longer there. So that's where I get my 20n is equal to 100 times 25. To solve this, I'm simply going to divide both sides by 20 to get n by itself. And now I can say that my n is going to be 100 times the 25 divided by the 20. And when I do my math, 100 times 25 is 2,500. 25 divided by 20 is 125. So as a result, it has a value of $125. So having that original cost in there, and I could write a sentence if I have a problem. The original cost is the original cost is $125. Okay, so those are the two types of questions. Again, I solve them by simply getting my ratios set up. Once those ratios are set up, it's easy to cross multiply and solve. For these ones, when you're looking at percent increases and percent decreases, what you want to do with these questions, so this one says calculate the percent increase if a guitar was $250 and the price increased to $280. What you need to do is when you read these questions, you need to ask yourself, what is the 100% value at the start of this process? Because it's a percent increase, I can look at it and I can say that $250 is my 100%. It then went from that 100% cost up to a higher value of an increase, more than 100% because it increased. So what I do is if I know that that is my 100%, I want to figure out what is the percent between these two numbers. So I take my 280 and I put it over top of my 250, which represents my 100% value. Now all I'm doing is I'm finding a percentage of this. I'm saying, well, what percentage is it at? So if I'm looking at a number line, just so you guys know, it's sitting here, 100% cost is $250, and I'm saying, well, wait a second. If it increased, what is that percent? How much did that increase by? So if I go 280 divided by 250, and then I take that, whatever that answer is, and I times it by 100, I've just made it into a percent, the same way you would do it on a test. The only difference is this time, I'm going to obviously have a percent greater than 100 because it's more expensive. So 280 divided by 250 gives me 1.12. I times that by 100, and now I have a percent of 112%. Now, one thing I just want to reiterate, it's asking for the percent increase, not the percent value. It wants the increase, right? That increase is important. So if I'm looking at that, I have to in turn go, well, what's the difference between this 112% and the original 100%? And in this case, it was a 12%. So the percent increase is 12%. Okay, I'm hoping that makes sense so far. So now, same kind of question. The only difference is now we're looking at a percent decrease. Pencil crayons, the original price was $12.99. That to me is my 100%. If that's the original price, that's where I started. That's the 100% cost. The new price is obviously reduced. It's below 100% this time, and I want to figure out how far below 100% it is. So what I need to do is take my new price of $7.99 and divide it by my old price of $7.99 and times it by 100. And I'm going to round this answer to the nearest tenth in this case because I know 13 is going to give me a repeating decimal or a long decimal. 12.99, so 0.61508 gives me a whole bunch of numbers, so it's about 61.5% when I actually do the math and round it. 61.5%. Now again, that is where I'm at. That's where $7.99 is sitting on my number line. $12.99 started here, and that represented my 100%. Well, now $7.99 is somewhere below that, and that's the percent I don't know. Or sorry, I just figured that out. That's the 61.5%. 61.5%. And now the question is, it's supposed to be a 6, what is the difference between these guys? So in other words, how far did I have to move? So when I look at this now, to figure this out, I'm going to take my 100%, I'm going to subtract that 61.5%, and that's going to be the difference in the percent. So 100 minus that 61.5 gives me 38.5%. So now I know there was a 38.5% decrease. So we know how far it went down. So I'm hoping that makes sense, guys. If you have questions, ask.